Today we've got Tez.
Yes, sir.
And Tez, I've known you. I followed you. I got emails from you a while ago
Mm-hmm.
when you first started wholesaling.
Yes, sir.
And from there, I remember having coffee one time. We have coffee in Guthrie
Okay.
every Thursday with some investors.
Okay.
And they were like, "Did you see what Tez did? He started this coaching program and he blew it up."
Oh, wow.
So then you were kind of like, all right, he's not just a wholesale guy. Like, he actually is pouring into people.
Uh-huh.
And he's creating more entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when you really started getting my attention.
Okay.
But we have this podcast.
Yep.
And we want this podcast to be about inspiring people for intentional living.
Yes, sir.
To help them handle hard better. And we could talk about Tez in 2022 and Tez in 2023,
Uh-huh.
Tez in 2024, Tez in 2025. I'm sure you got big goals.
Yes, sir.
But I want to hear about the Tez, the 12-year-old Tez.
Yeah.
Could you tell us your story on what transpired, say from 12 or 10 or whatever, from your childhood to when you got into sales?
Absolutely, man. Man, I love that. First of all, Marty, thank you so much for inviting me, man. The intentional word, right? A lot of people look at it and, I think some of us know the meaning, but I think that you've really defined what it looks like on your social media and even with this podcast, being intentional with the actions you can go take. So I want to thank you, bro, for inviting me and following the story, So me at 12 and 10 and younger, I didn't see what I'm doing now being possible. I didn't know what it looked like, right? You hear it oftentimes on social media from the black community, especially. Like, we see hip hop artists and we see drug dealers and we see athletes. And it's like, okay, drugs is wrong, obviously, right? A lot of people get hurt, a lot of things go down. Athlete seems more realistic until you become an 18, 19-year-old and you're 5'6", right? Like it doesn't seem possible, But honestly, I didn't know what I was gonna do, man. At the time, my mom actually was in and out of prison around that age. This is something that I haven't really shared a whole lot publicly. My mom was in and out of prison. I still don't know who my dad is. At that time, I didn't have my dad. I had a guy who's still in my life. His name is Ken Arbertha. And that's where Tez Arbertha comes from, Arbertha comes from. But he actually just started dating my mom when she was pregnant. She's not actually my dad. And I still haven't met my dad. So at that age, I had a guy who was in and out of my life, who I call my dad today, but he was in and out of my life because he had a family already, right? So he would come around, and I was raised by my grandma. So my grandma was raising me and my two brothers. So rewind to Tez.
Where are you in line?
In terms of
two brothers.
You middle? I'm in the middle. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I've got an older brother who's 3 years older than me and a brother that's 3 years younger than me. We're all 3 years apart, 3 boys. It's weird. But anyway, so I'm the middle boy, and he would come in and, for birthdays and things like that, and I'm still raised by my grandma. And I noticed that my grandma was struggling sometimes, and, and we would have to move house to house, and I didn't really know what was going on, man, until I got to age like 15, 16.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time, I'm like, man, I gotta make something happen. Like, obviously. So I was trying to play sports.
Yeah.
But because my grandma needed help with bills, I couldn't play sports even. Like, I couldn't commit to a sport and actually try to go to college because I had to have a job.
Yeah.
So long story short, 16 years old, I'm working at McDonald's, man.
Yeah.
I'm walking back and forth from my grandma's house to McDonald's. And my camera guy, my man Andrew, can attest to this. There's a McDonald's over on Penn in Western by Moore West. I went to Moore West Middle School because my grandma moved us out of the hood because of gangs and influences, and that's what she had to do, man. So she moved us to Moore, where it was safer and we could be ourselves, man.
Rewind. Had your grandma not moved you out, would have made a difference?
Yes, 100%.
You probably would have spiraled, right?
100%. I would be in gangs, probably. Like, a lot of my friends are in gangs.
Yeah.
That were my friends in. Gangs, prison, or dead.
So you should thank your grandma later.
Oh,
for moving. Just for that, though.
Yeah.
Just for that one.
100%. And I wanna be able to get to it. I've thanked her a couple of times.
Yeah.
And you know, my biggest motivation was my grandma. She was the woman in my life. And at OKC Evolve, like she's gonna be there front row, you know, and I'm gonna really be able to give the full length of the story. But dude, shout out to Marty, man, because he's getting this story first. You know what I mean? It just hit me like, I don't know if it's gonna be worth anything.
So you're working at McDonald's.
Working at McDonald's, man. And going back and forth, helped my grandma with the bills. And one of my best friends commit to OU to go play quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, dude, I was like, I gotta do something, man. I'm happy for my friend, but dang, dude, like, I can't. I mean, you know, sports ain't gonna work out for me. Like, I don't even have the time to commit. So graduate high school. Speed the story up. I graduate. I end up working at Hobby Lobby warehouse, busting my butt. Just like, man, there's got to be more to life, you know. Come across a sales opportunity while scrolling on Indeed one day, and he told me, like, just talking over the phone, he goes, dude, you know what, you would be good at sales. And I was not sold. I was like, there's no way I could do this. Like, I'm good. You gotta remember, like, I'm somebody who came from like hard work. You get paid for the work you put in. You don't get paid for your personality or being able to talk to people. That's just, I couldn't wrap my head around that.
The recruiter told you should be good at sales?
Yes, okay. Right? Exactly. So at this point, I'm like, is this really?
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, he hadn't met me yet. This is somebody in Dallas, Texas, and he just came across an Indeed thing. But he said something to me, Marty, that will always stick with me. His name was Rich. I'll never forget Rich. And the reason I'll never forget Rich is because what he told me. He said, Tez, listen, when you show up to work, what do you do? So, well, I build boxes for Hobby Lobby. You know, I build these wooden boxes. He goes, okay, does your manager ever walk up to you and say, hey, if you build more boxes in an hour, this day you'll get paid more money? And I said, no. He goes, you know why? Why? He goes, well, the amount of money that your hour is worth is determined before you show up there. It does not matter what more you put in. And I go, okay. He goes, so do you really think your hour is worth $15? I said, well, when you put it like that, no, I don't think my hour is worth $15. He goes, okay, in sales, you may make a lot of money or you may be broke. You may make none.
But it's up to you.
He goes, but at the end of the day, when you get paid, you know you got paid what you're worth. And I was like, wow. Like, and regardless of what you're selling, regardless of what it is, I had to give it a shot after hearing that. I was like, I just believe in myself enough to at least try it. I mean, he goes, okay, let's give you a shot. And I gave it a shot, man. Before I knew it, and rewind, my grandma was actually working at Hobby Lobby too.
Okay. And
she was working there for like 7 years before I got hired. So she was hardcore. Hobby Lobby is the place to be. You need to be working
Hobby
here.
Lobby takes care of their people.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's what I've heard.
They take good care of their people, etc. And my grandma got a raise every year, you know. And like around Christmas time, they give you a bonus. And like, dude, she was just all about it. And she's like, look, this is the best thing for you, son. This is the best you can do, you know. And I believed it, man. I mean, I looked at my friends and the people graduated. If you weren't at OU playing football, to me at that time, it's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, that's it. Or you're away at college, right? So anyway, in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is going to be it. So one weekend, I just made the decision. I didn't put in 2 weeks or nothing. I just quit. And before you know it, I was down in Dallas for a convention for this company. And my grandma called me.
Which company? Hobby Lobby or
no, this
Indeed?
other company. It was an Indeed job. I forgot the name of the company. It was so fly by night.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, where you at? And I was like, call her Mima. I was like, Mima, I'm in Dallas. She's like, what? You're supposed to be at work. And let me tell you, I had quit and lost jobs like on my path to finally get hired at Hobby Lobby. And people knew that I was her grandson. It was all on the line for her. She was not happy.
Oh.
And she hung up. Like, I was like, I'm just trying to figure something out, Mima. Let me just try this. I don't like the work and hard work. I don't like that. And she was like, whatever. You know, she said some other words, right? And she hung up. And I was like, goodness, man. So now the lady that I love, right, is like not happy about it. I'm already insecure about the move. But I gave it a shot, man. I gave it a shot. And what I was doing, Marty, I was going business to business selling credit card processing machines.
Okay.
So I walk into your company that you already got a machine working, and I got to tell you why my machine is better, right? And I was surprised the money that I made, but I wasn't happy with the ethics behind what I was doing. So I found something else. And, you know, that.
But you were good at it.
I was good at it. I learned that, oh, I thought people just like talking to me. I thought that was everybody, right? Like I thought everybody, like I just thought talking was friendship, building, community.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was common, but I didn't know that I actually had a skill that God blessed me with to actually communicate and articulate myself in a way that I could paint a picture and sell. And I was like, wow, people like me. You know what I mean? Like more than other people.
Yeah.
You know, that's a gift to be able to articulate yourself and be honest and all those things. So when I identified that, man, I started to really learn a lot about myself. But that's me bringing you to like pre-real estate.
So how old
I
are
don't
you
know
now?
how far you want me to go.
How old are you when you learn to sell?
22.
22.
Yep.
You do that. How long did you sell credit cards machines?
Man, 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
But you learned that 6 months. You learned Tez is in the sales.
Yes.
Tez loves to sell.
Yep.
This is his specialty. This is what separates me from everybody else. This is my unique gift.
Yep.
So from there, where'd you go?
From there, man, it was all commission. And I found I went to it's ironic. I ended up finding like a staffing company.
Okay.
I found a staffing company that found me a job at ServPro. Now, ServPro, have you ever heard of that company? Okay. You're going to see it now. When you leave here, you're going to be like, oh, okay, that's what Ted's talking about. Because you've seen it a lot. It's the green vans. It's like a bright green van. And got an orange roof on it. And what they do is they come in and they do fire and water restoration.
Okay.
And so, when a fire happens, water happens, something like that. And they had me in this role that was new to the company. They were like, yeah, we're trying to start, marketing. So they had me going out marketing to insurance agents who whenever they had a client where a water, damage happened or a fire happened, that agent would call us up, right? So they gave me this driving route of agents throughout the state. And I would drive agency to agency talking to them about our services. Hey, man, can I get you lunch? You want to hang out? And it was a long game. They were into it for the long game, right? Because I wasn't going to make any money immediately. Like, hey, Mark, you know anybody who just got a fire at their house? No, right? That's like it's terrible, right? Like we don't want that to happen to anybody. But when it happened, we wanted to be a source.
Yeah.
So I was just providing that service for about probably about a year. I had worked there. And full transparency, like up until this point, that's the longest job that I had.
Really?
Yeah. Doing that. It was easy. I mean, I got paid salary and commission.
What made that stick for you? Was it you growing up? Was it the job itself? Was it you learning who you were? What prompted that year of stability?
Dude, good question. It was 100% me being tired of jumping job to job. Also being appreciated. But more than anything, Marty, like my life at that time, I had a car and a 1-bedroom apartment. Life didn't get more difficult than just making my rent, paying my phone bill, and paying my car bill, right? And this job's base salary allowed me to do that. I mean, I was only making like $1,200 every 2 weeks.
But it was
like, dude, I mean, I'm still doing good. I still can afford to eat out. Like, I'm good. I didn't have any kids.
No roller coaster.
No roller coaster. It was consistent, So I think that's what it was. I was finally to a point where I was like, I'm tired of jumping job to job. And I had a lot of freedom. I still was able to drive the city. I didn't sit in an office all day. I drove the city, and I wasn't swinging a hammer or working on boxes and smelling like, dirty wood when I got off work. So, I didn't have to shower when I got off work all the time, right? I still showered, but I didn't have to. It wasn't a requirement. But, I mean, I think it was just that, man. I finally found something that I was good at and that was comfortable, I think. 100%.
So that lasts a year.
Yep.
And then what?
Dude, good question. So I started marketing to agents, and I met this guy in Norman. And what happened is I was a part of a BNI group. BNI, the little networking groups. It's like there's something else called I think it's called like Gold Star, something like that. Anyway, they're networking groups where only one professional from each niche can be in the group, and they meet weekly.
Okay.
So the company, ServPro, actually paid for me to be a part of this group. $600 a year, something like that. So there's a lady in there. Her name is Ellie Wade. Never forget Ellie. Sweet lady. She still works down in Moore at First United, and she's a mortgage lender. Ellie had a flood at her house. Her upstairs bathroom flooded. She's like, Who do I know? Who do I know? So she actually called us. Her agent handled it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And they took care of it. So once we got her satisfaction back on like a little survey, I took it to the agent. I said, hey man, when things like this happen, just refer business to us. We took care of Ellie. We can take care of anybody else who you may need. This is how happy your client was.
Yeah.
He didn't care about any of that. Okay. He was like, okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Thanks, man. I was like, hey, by the way, would you be open to us bringing you lunch? And he's like, sure. Yeah, you can bring us lunch. You can bring the old office. And so we took barbecue by, and me and the owner sat there of the company, and we hung out. And this guy was not super interested. And I mean, he was just on his phone the whole time.
Mm.
And I remember just seeing his car out front, really nice car, really nice, I'm like, what does this guy want? That's what I kept thinking. He would ask me questions and not really talk to the owner of the company. And I'm like, what does this dude want? So after that meeting, he had somebody that worked in the office reach out to me. Hey, man, Judd really wants to sit down with you. Judd was his name. And I go, okay, cool. Whatever. I sit down with the dude. He's on his phone the whole time. I'm thinking they're like still wanting to be sold on ServPro. So I came with a pamphlet. I came with a pamphlet about ServPro, about mode mediation, and just like all these things that we do. And I'm putting it all in front of him. And this dude is just not interested. I mean, he's just on his phone the whole time. Just looking So finally, inside, I'm like, I kind of take it personal. And I was like, I asked a question. And I was like, hey, so what do I owe you guys the honor? That's what I said, intentionally to him.
Yeah.
Towards him, but to Brandon. So what do I owe you guys the honor? And he puts his phone down. He slaps it down. He goes, I'm glad you finally asked. He said, this is what I'm here for.
That's all he wanted.
That's all he wanted. He wanted to ask that. And what he did was he pitched me an opportunity to go work for him as an agent at his office. He's like, dude, you're really good with communication, all that stuff. He's like, that's really what we want for. I don't care about any of that stuff. And I was like, all right, well, what's the process? What is it? I mean, I see the nice car. I see the nice truck Brandon drives. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I didn't know. All I knew was that I needed to help my family more at this time. This is what's going on personally. My grandma needed help, right? So I'm like, so what do I need? What can I do? Well, it's all commission. Already, I'm like, oh my gosh, all commission again. All commission. You got to go get this license. I was like, dude, I'm not. I was like, dude, I'm gonna be honest. I just started this job a year ago. I like this job. The people are good, and all commission just scares me. Working all commission, it scares me. I'm good. I got a salary where I am. And he's like, I understand, and he laid it all out and he goes, this is what you can make. This is what you can make. This is how much he made. And I'm like, man, I'll give it a shot.
Tez, what did he see in you? Do you know? I mean, he obviously singled you out, right?
Yep.
And he obviously wanted the call.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, from your story, he blew you off until... And it's interesting, you're in sales, and you were asking yourself, what does he want? That's the question we always ask in sales, right?
Uh-huh.
What does this guy really want?
Mm-hmm.
And can I give it to him?
Mm-hmm.
But what did he see in you, do you think, that made him draw you out and wait for you to give in your pitch and be open to what he had?
Marty, after all these years, I've never asked myself that question. I like to be cocky.
Because he saw something.
Right, yeah, I like to be cocky, oh, it's just me. But at the time, I didn't know myself. I still did not really know the art of sales. Until
it's interesting because the Hobby Lobby, the Indeed guy, saw something in you too.
Truthfully, I have to give the honor to God.
Mm-hmm. Well,
whatever it was, it had to be an impression.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. On the human level, what was it? Because we still have... No, I get that.
But ultimately, we're all in God's will. And
yeah.
It's going to happen.
I don't know. I can't tell, because the guy Rich, I never met him in person.
Mm-hmm.
It was just over the phone. And then I finally met him in Dallas, but he was from Wisconsin or something. I don't know if it's my ability to communicate. I don't know if it's tonality. I don't know what it is.
Something.
Yeah. But I was able to close him on the lunch. And he closed me. He definitely did. And he's like, hey man, this is what we have to offer. This is it. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, let me cut in real quick.
Yeah.
Have you read the book Pitch Anything by Warren Clapp?
You keep referencing these books, and it's like, I'm a book dude.
There's a opening story in there. He pitches $1 billion stuff to people.
Okay.
Or hundreds of millions. The last deal in that book's $1 billion.
Okay.
But he has this guy big high-end guy in New York who's blowing him off.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally, they're in the boardroom, and the guy's literally, yeah.
Cool.
The
Go
guy's
ahead.
literally reading the newspaper. No, he's not reading a newspaper. He's doodling. And Orrin
I
walks,
downloaded it.
Orrin walks over to him and grabs it because that's part of being a good salesman. You got to control, right? So
Yep.
he goes over and he grabs the guy's artwork, and he goes, "That's pretty good." And he talks about in doing that, like he grabbed it, he took control,
Mm-hmm.
but then he gave it back and he complimented the guy, which saved the guy's respect.
Mm-hmm.
But then the guy stood up in his seat, and because then he respected him.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a good book if you're into sales
100%.
and pitching stuff like that. There's a lot of psychological stuff in
I
there.
love that. Thanks for the reference, bro. I downloaded
Full of
it.
stories.
Yeah.
It's a good one to listen
I
to.
love stories, man.
Yeah.
People love stories.
Anyway, I cut in on you, but
No, that's okay.
I couldn't help because in your story, once you got to that point, the guy put his phone down.
Yep.
Once you got to the point where you wanted to hear what he had to say,
Mm-hmm.
he gave you his attention.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to get to that point with sales, right?
Yep.
You got to get to the point where
Got to get to the point.
Yeah.
Yes. And man, I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, anyway, so I take the job, start, get my license. That was a challenge, studying and all that stuff. But I got my license, man. And I became a agent in that office, or producer is what they call it.
Mhm.
Worked there for a little bit of time. And I started to think again. I'm like, okay, I'm 23, about to be 24 at this time. And I'm like, man, I'm marketing to everybody my age, my group, but these people, they don't own houses yet. They're still on their parents' insurance, like something's got to give, So instead of marketing consumer to consumer, I started to think how I thought or how ServPro's model was set out. ServPro model wasn't client or customer to business to customer. It was, or client. It was business to business. It was B2B. It was, So I said, okay. One night I'm just up and I'm like, dude, who's a business that can bring me deals? Oh, real estate agents and mortgage originators.
How do you fill the pipeline?
Yes. Okay. So I said, okay, instead of being in the office all day like everybody else, I'm just going to leave because he didn't care, right? He didn't care. He's like, you can go anywhere. So I started going back to banks, talking to mortgage originators. Because oftentimes people get pre-approved long before they worry about who's going to insure their house.
Mm-hmm.
So, I said, okay, I can get in with mortgage originators and then real estate agents. So that was my business. I only marketed to them. If a person hit me up on Facebook, fine. I still marketed there, but I wasn't like hardcore selling on Facebook anymore. I was hardcore selling, like talking to, business to business. And I would say donuts buy, and I would do little things like that. And I came across people who actually was like, you know what? I'll give you a shot. Give you a shot. So I went from like having to work in the office all day to I could just stay at home. Like he didn't care. I just had a laptop. I had to write the policy, bind the policy. I just had a day that I had to close the office, and that was Fridays. So my life became really fun is what I should say. Like, 'cause I would wake up at like 10 a.m. and I'm like, yeah, whatever.
It's all commission based.
It's all commission based. So
How many digits you making at this point?
oh man, I'm probably making like $3,000 a month.
Okay.
But it was all commission. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't have any. Again, still living
had
in a
freedom.
1-bedroom apartment. Yeah, and to me it was simple. I had a girlfriend at the time.
And you're doing what you like.
I'm doing what I like. It wasn't bad, and it was for a cool guy, by the way. Like the dude was like 33, and he was really into a lot of stuff that I was into. Like he liked hip hop music, and he liked skiing, and he liked basketball. And dude, we would connect on so many levels. He was just such a cool guy. So I was like, man, this dude's cool, and why would I not, But it got to a point to where one time I was riding his car. He had like this very like foreign car. It was like a German car. It was something crazy. It was like a Fisker or something like that. I can't remember. But I remember riding it, and we went to a country club that he had a membership at, and I was like, man, this is nice. And that bug got to me again where I was like, okay. And I'm riding the car with him, and I go, hey, man. He goes, what? I go, how do I make more money? And, he kind of got quiet. He's like, what? And I'm the top producing guy in the office at this point, okay? And if you make it like a year, then you start getting residuals. Mm-hmm. And so he was trying to sell me on just make it a year. You won't have to work so hard for premium. And I go, oh, man, I'm in a car. I'm go, dude, how do I make more money? Like, how do I drive a car like yours? And like, how do I own a house like yours? And how do I get memberships at country clubs? And like, how do I live that life? And he's like, well, I mean, I invest my money in stocks.
Mm.
And I was like, stocks? What's that? He's like, well, it takes a while. You need a lot of money and all this stuff. And I'm like, nah, man, like I need money like now. Like that doesn't make sense to me, like stocks. I don't know what that is. I was like, I make $3,000 a month. How can I afford to put anything back into this stock stuff you're talking about?
Yeah.
And so after that, he just kind of talked a little bit more and turned the music up, right? And I was just like, I still had the bug though. I still was thinking like, there's got to be more. And to speed the story up, I ended up coming across a young lady, business. So I'm there in the beginning months, and I end up getting my girlfriend at the time pregnant. Okay, she's pregnant, and I'm like, okay, life's real. Like I got to be able to make something happen. I have no benefits. I have nothing, literally nothing. It's like I have nothing. So I'm like,
There's a verse in the Bible about Enoch. It says, Enoch was 65 years old, and then he had kids, and then he walked with the Lord. And it's, I don't know where you're going with the story, but it's crazy how the responsibilities of our life, the big ones, can be a wake-up call to, okay, I've got to be more intentional. I've got to do the bigger thing. I can't continue to just drift through life. Taking it as I can. It's time to be a man, right?
Yes, sir.
Step up.
And it comes back to that word on your shirt, intentional, right? It came to be intentional. So I said, okay, I got to walk with intent. I can't just live life not worrying about tomorrow, because it's now bigger than just me and my girlfriend, or just bigger than just me. And I'm like, all right, man, I got to figure something out. So God thing again, a few colleagues in the office was like, hey man, you're doing really good now, but you need to prepare for the winter. I was like, what's that mean? Like, well, realtors don't sell as many houses, which means we won't get as many policies. And I'm like, oh. I didn't know that. Thanks for telling me. I got a kid on the way. And they still don't know that. Right? So I'm like, oh crap. And I'm like, okay. I go back in the lab and I'm like, what's going to happen in the wintertime? Who needs houses in the wintertime? Builders. Because people still build houses in the wintertime, and they prepare for spring. They'll get done. So people are still buying houses. So I can at least bind some policies and get paid on those if the policy takes, when it takes in effect. So I can at least have money to anticipate when they close. People are still buying houses. So I said, okay, I need to find builders. Boom, found it. I didn't tell anybody else that. I was like, I'm gonna go straight to builders. So I got on Indeed. On LinkedIn. And I typed in home builders, Oklahoma. It'll bring up all these profiles. I copy and paste message, hit them all. All of them, the ones I can. And this young lady reached out to me. Her name was Tara Porter. Tara's a realtor in Oklahoma. She's actually going to be speaking at OKC Evolve because I cannot repay her enough. Tara was like, hey, Tez, absolutely, let's sit down. Let's get some coffee or something. So we got coffee and we hung out a few times, and she kind of told me what she was doing, and I had no interest. I simply wanted insurance policies. That's all I wanted from Tara. Like, a relationship, sure, but at the end of the day, ultimately being transparent, I had to make money. Yes, I had to make money. So, I'm like, yeah, Tara, awesome. All the things you're talking about with the builder, and that's why cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you know anybody trying to get insurance? And she's like, I'm actually just a marketing person, but I think you'll be good at this job. And I was like, oh man, again, somebody's trying to recruit me.
That's why she wanted to sit down?
No, originally she just wanted to know who I was and everything like that. And I'm like, man, and we're talking. She's like, I think you'll be good at this. And I'm like, no, I won't. Like, I don't know anybody trying to buy a house. I'm good now. I got relationships with mortgage originators and other real estate agents, and I'm good, Tara. Like, I thank you for the offer. I don't know anybody trying to buy houses. Came to me one day. She's like, okay, let's get lunch again. Cool. So she sat down with me and she goes, hey, this is how much money I made last month. She showed me a check for like $16,000. And I was like,
better than three.
Better than three. And I was like, really? She goes, yeah. I go, that's cool. She goes, you're not interested? I said, nope. I'm more interested in like what I've already built here. I already have relationships. I don't need a lot of money. That's not my motivation. I simply just want to be able to take care of home. And I'm still super loyal to the guy at the insurance agency. He gave me an opportunity. We have a good relationship. I know I'm his top producing guy.
Tez, is that really the truth though? That's probably what it was, right? The loyalty to him more than $3,000 a month.
Yes.
Right? And that's what we often
Yep.
find with staying at jobs is who we're working for,
Yep.
not necessarily the terms,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's often the case.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a known with him.
Yep.
And you would have to go to an unknown, start over, even though she could prove to you you can make 5 times as much money.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you were to look back, you could say, and it's a lesson to us as business owners to treat people fairly and with respect,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what keeps people committed more than the money, right?
Yes, it does. 100%.
We think we can give
Wow.
them money,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but at the end of the day, you were willing to stay
Uh-huh.
for 5 times less
Mm-hmm.
because of your loyalty to him, because he was a cool guy.
Super cool dude. Until
Until,
some things happen.
but
Exactly.
dot.
And I'm like, no, I'm not interested. Well, one night I'm thinking about it, and the kid thing's still getting real, right? It's getting further.
Baby bumps getting bigger.
Yeah. And I'm like, I need insurance. I gotta have insurance. I gotta have insurance. That was a big thing for me. And I'm like, I started looking into how much insurance costs, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I can't afford that, And man, she sends me a video, and it was the owner of Roush Coleman. His name is John Roush. And he's talking about it being a faith-based organization. And that sold me. I was like, okay, well, God's speaking to me. I'm sitting here. I need this. I need, and he talks about how important faith is and how important, putting it before business and all that stuff. I'm like, wow, man. Like, God's voice couldn't be louder. So I walked in.
Just a second. Take me there. Take me to your relationship with Jesus.
Okay.
When did that begin? How did that get to this point?
Yeah. So I struggled and wrestled with my relationship with Jesus for a very long time. I remember being young back in the day, rewind back to, ages 8, 9, 10, all that. My grandma always took us to church. Our cousin had a church, and she would take us to church, and I was bored. I wasn't paying attention. My grandma had this thing where she would pinch you in church. She would pinch you. And she would sit behind us intentionally so she can watch us, and she would pinch us, like, pay attention, Yep. Or she would grab our ear or something, like, pay attention. So I would just remember. So when I thought about church, I thought about getting pinched all the time. I was like, golly. So, but I was always ignorant, and I say this because I was ignorant to the fact that death and the end of life could happen to anybody at any age.
Mm-hmm.
I was ignorant, thinking that I'll have time for God. I have time later. I just want to live the life I want to live now. I'll get to God when I remember the age. It was 24. I told myself, oh, I'm 17. I'm 18 now. I remember I got my ears pierced. My dad was just not happy. But the only reason I desired a relationship with God is because I desired a relationship with the guy who I thought was my dad at the time, and that's Ken Arbertha. He was a minister. After living a life of gangbanging and sins and all that stuff, he became a minister, and I knew that was like a place that I could have to relate with him.
Okay.
Early on. So my relationship with God became important because I just wanted a relationship with him. And he was like, yeah, God's important. And so then I began to pray, and I started to really, pray over our food and things like that for my family when he wasn't even around.
You're 24?
No, this is when I was younger, like kind of developing that relationship. And then by the age of 23, 24, fast forward, so I've always had like this thing in the back of my mind where I feel like God was guiding my steps, but I never had an intimate relationship with him. So 24, I get that video, and I got a girl who's pregnant, and I'm like, all right, God, let's do it. Let me see. And I just remember at the time how important this kid was to me. And I ended up going to like a softball game Tara invited me to. It was a company softball game. And I was like, here I am, this insurance guy coming out, and I was like hoping to get more policies right. I got all these relationships with everybody. And I met a girl named Amanda. She was an area sales manager at the time. And Amanda loved me. She was like, oh, you're great. You're awesome. And Tara's like, hey, I'm thinking about, he's thinking about coming over. And she was like, oh, yeah, I don't need an interview. I love him as a person. He seems cool. He needs one interview, and that's with Kevin. That's my business partner at Local Guys now. Well, at that time, rewind. So she's like, he's going to interview with Kevin. Interview with Kevin. They hire me. They send me an offer letter. Check this out. I still haven't told you yet. Offer letter comes through in our fax machine at the office because I didn't have a fax machine at home. And at the time, they still sent offer letters that way. No, they sent it through the email and I printed it. That's what happened. And I printed it, but I guess I forgot that it was back there. And a guy in the office brought it and he was like a partner already. And he just kind of put it down.
This is at your previous job.
This is at the insurance agency.
Oh, man.
He just set it down and he just looked at me and he was like, and just walked out. And I was like, he texted me. He's like, hey, when are you going to tell Judd? And I was like, I haven't made a decision yet. And he's like, okay. That's all I said. So I sat down with Judd. I said, hey, man, dude, you know I've got a kid on the way? He's like, yep. I'm like, I don't have benefits here, man. He's like, yep. I'm like, I got presented an opportunity where I'm going to have benefits, and I thought he was going to be happy for me. I really thought he was going to be happy for me. And he wasn't. He wasn't.
That's hard.
It's hard. It really broke my heart because I'm like, dude, I could have left a long time ago, you know? And he was like, cool, dude. Well, I mean, what? You know? And I was like, well, dude, I mean, I have a base salary there where they're going to offer me pretty much what I have to grind here to make per month. And then anything above that is just icing on the cake, bro. He's like, okay. I mean, if you need $2,000 a month, I can make sure you make that. I mean, I can just pay you that. I was like, it's not about that, brother. Like, it's not about that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, if you could afford that, why didn't you just do that already, right? Like, I have to come to you now with this offer that, you know. But I'm like, all right, man. I said, look, dude, I really need benefits. I have to have benefits. He's like, all right. I mean, so what? I go, I've got, like, 2 more houses that are supposed to close, and I can have their policy. It would really help me out financially if I could just not leave until those close. So this is more of like a 2 weeks than it is a. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna need you that long. And I'm like, okay, all right, bro. and I reach for the keys in my pocket. I'm like, I'm just gonna give you the key back to the office. He goes, oh no, you don't have to do that now. I'm like, nah, bro, it's okay. You made yourself clear. Gave him the key. I was like, I'm out. So I went cleared out my office and I left. And I'll never forget just how cold I was treated when I said I want to do something for myself and my family. And the story. So I go work there for a couple months, and that's the entire reason I left. And she's 8 months pregnant, and we find out that the baby actually didn't make it. Baby actually passed away. So December.
In the last trimester.
December 2016, she had to deliver a stillborn baby. It was the toughest thing I experienced in my entire life. It was a time where I couldn't tell a story without bawling, you know what I mean? But the entire reason I put it all on the line is for a kid that's no longer here. You know what I mean? And I remember going to the doctor's office, man, and just sitting there with her and her having to deliver a baby that we both knew wasn't alive. You know what I mean? It was really, really tough. But that following year, God really showed up. Me and the girl, we were together for like 4 years before that. And I remember the division president for Roush Coleman called me in. And he goes, Tez, I've never shared this with anybody because I experienced the same thing. He's like, one or two things is going to happen. It's going to bring you really close or it's going to tear you apart. Like, okay. He gave me everything. You know, he told me way more than just that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And dude, it definitely tore us apart because they gave me 2 weeks off, but I only took 2 days. And I went back to work and I poured everything into work. Like I had to, man. And I grieved differently. And I think that really affected my relationship is because she's like, you're not even bothered. You know, she wanted me to, she wanted to see more pain. She went, I don't know, but I had pain. I just didn't show it to her because my dad told me that I couldn't. He's like, hey, you gotta be strong for her. You gotta be strong for her. So, you know, just stay strong.
You know, it's hard, Tez, because I think as men, we have this misconception of what manhood looks like. And it isn't, it's being the tough guy. And it isn't empathizing a lot of times or having that compassion. And that's what's so hard is our culture teaches us that we got to man up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell it to our boys when they're this big.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I struggle with it. I mean, all my kids, I got 6 kids, and
Yeah.
you know,
Bless it.
they were sick last week with the stomach bug.
Mm.
You think they're coming to dad? No.
Uh-huh.
Where are they at?
Yeah, they were mom.
They're all with mom.
Uh-huh.
And they're with mom because that's where they're getting the compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's like you did what most of us men do.
Mm-hmm.
We bury it with work or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Sometimes we turn to other substances.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, lots of things.
Yep.
We could list them all.
Yep.
But I think it's good that you said what you said. You identified it. You know, you went back to work because that's how you dealt with it.
Yep.
If you could rewind, would you do it any different?
Man, for who I am today and the family that I have today,
Well, I know that.
yeah, I would have to say no.
Yeah.
I would have to say no, because the way I deal with pain today is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I would have changed is my grieving process.
Yeah. And that's
I would have definitely changed that. I didn't grieve my child. I didn't go to his grave for over a year. Her family actually owned a funeral home. So her dad came and got our child.
And took care of it.
Took him. Yep. And we came and saw him like a week later, you know, out of the freezer. Anyway, he was in like a freezer, you know. And they buried him after that. And that day was the last day I saw him for a very long time. You know, I didn't go out to his grave for a long time. I just focused on work.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I worked, you know, and to be honest with you, Marty, that year I was on pace to make like $40,000. The following year I did over $160,000. And it was a complete culture shock for me. Nobody in my family was making that kind of money. I had never seen that much money in my life. It was a lot. I mean, and life was really simple. Life was really simple for me. So I was able to do a lot of things and have a lot of experiences, like take my grandma on her first, you know, family vacation and do those things. And it transformed my life. But it was a lot of pain, man, lead up to that point. And we did break up. And that following year, I sold more houses than anybody in our division at Roush Coleman. I placed second in the entire organization. They're in multiple states. And it changed a lot for me. But what really hit home is when I finally grieved my son. But that's how I got into real estate. I put a lot on the line, and, you know, here we are.
The circling back to the pain.
Yep.
In regards to this podcast, Killing Complacency, a lot of times we have to get to the point where we experience that amount of pain, where we're willing to make the shift and live more intentional.
Yeah.
For me, a couple of years ago, I started running.
Mm.
I'd always say I'm not a runner.
Mm-hmm.
I hate running.
Uh-huh.
It hurts. Terrible. But I was getting old. I was getting fat. Every day I'd wake up, my body would ache. And I was like, I got to do something. But it was that pain. And that's a small scale compared to stillborn child and all that. But just making the point that pain a lot of times is what gets us out of the ruts and into, you know, it's a pain point of I've got to do something different. Something's got to change. And I don't know how we can get people to understand that without experiencing the pain. You know, if you could just tell all your coaching students, hey, do as I say, not as I do, or not necessarily that, but but hey, you don't. Here's a fast track.
Yep.
This is, and you do that. Here's your script. Say this, do that.
Yep.
This is the easy. This is the TES way. This is the easy way. This is how we do it at Verified. But not everyone always listens.
And Maury, there's no better teacher than experience. You know, I mean, I could coach you up. I could tell you everything, but until you got that seller who's not happy and you have to deal with it, it's like, you don't know what it's like, you know? So you have to be able to experience it. And I think that I wouldn't want anybody to experience the pain that I experienced there.
Yeah.
You know, but like you said, there is a
Well, and there's a soft place in your heart, Tez, for people that experience that. I guarantee that.
mm-hmm,
And if you had a colleague, a friend, whoever,
mm-hmm.
experience that, you would be way more empathetic than somebody who hasn't.
Mm.
And that's a cool thing about pain. If once we embrace it, once we let it do its work,
Mm-hmm.
is it makes us better people.
Yeah. I heard something the other day, and I always say your story is a testimony, but I heard somebody the other day say, before your testimony comes a test. And that was a test. Like you said, there was a lot of vices I could have turned to. I don't know what I would have done had I not had something to turn to like real estate. And at the time, I'm still unsure. I still don't know how to sell. I didn't know these things. So I just worked harder than everybody else. You know, I stayed later.
Right.
I got there earlier. And it had a really bad effect on my relationship. But man, it really put
What
me in a
year is
strong
this?
place.
This
2017.
2017.
This is 2017. Yep. Never forget it.
And on the, I mean, you would know better than me probably. Real estate, you know, we've gone through some cycles.
Yep.
It's picking back up in 2017, right? But not like 2020.
No, not
But
like
it's
2020.
it's definitely climbing.
Yep.
From 2013.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming. Rosh, how good of a year did they have that year? Do you know?
Yeah. 2017, they probably closed about 520.
Okay.
Yeah, about 520, which is a lot of houses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of houses. 2021, they were doing like 1,100. They did like
Okay.
1,100 that year. It's crazy. But yeah, Roush is doing really well. I mean, they built an entry level product.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it doesn't matter if you're downsizing or if you're buying your first home. They're right there.
They're in Guthrie right now.
Are they?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Developing
Okay. There's a
small
lot.
lots and they're to market fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They built a house in 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
They can, breaking ground to completion, 90 days, 120 days most.
1,100 times a year.
Yeah. Yeah. And they got it down to a system, you know. Like, that's something I respect about that company. I learned a lot from them. But, yeah, man, I mean, that is, you know, young to the entry level of getting into a game.
Tell me about your foundation. You had the football foundation.
Yeah, man. So
I
I
did that last year.
Yeah. So I want to start a nonprofit for it. I actually just started like an LLC, but I've been talking to a few buddies of mine who's into sports, and they're like, "Do you got to make it a nonprofit?" But basically, man, I wanted to use something that inspired me, like football, to let kids know that they can do more than sports. Because I remember the emotion that I went to between age 16 to like 23, 24 before I found sales, I guess 22 before I found sales. It was turmoil, man. I mean, I was drinking, I was hanging out with buddies. I didn't know what I was going to do. Like, and remember, my buddy is a quarterback at OU.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't get more, like, he had fame, he had it all, man. I mean, so I would go down and hang out with him on campus, but I didn't go to OU there. Yeah, I mean, I didn't go to school there. So, you know, we would go to clubs, we would do all the things that any high school guy ever wanted to do in college, at the collegiate level, at the college in our state.
Yeah.
You know, aside from OSU, somebody would probably combat that. But in Norman, man, so it was a lot of fun. And it's like, you know, but internally, I still was empty. I was like, man, what this is cool for him, you know, but what am I gonna do? Like, I can't be his friend forever. Just a friend of a pro athlete. Like,
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want that for my life. So I'm like, what am I gonna do? And
So the foundation.
Yep.
It's to fill that void.
It's
for
to
kids.
fill that void. So I talk about that because with the foundation, with those kids, the reason I put the camp on is I had my buddy from high school. He came out. He played for the LA Rams for some time. I had a NFL tight end who played with Tom Brady and won a championship with Tom Brady come out. We had 6 pro guys come out. And I knew that would make the parents go, oh my gosh, I want my kids to be there. And I knew it would make the kids be like, oh my goodness, I want to come. And when they got there, I was like, I tricked y'all. You know, we're going to have a camp. We're going to have a good time. But I want to talk to you about something that changed my life in case football doesn't. And I talked about real estate. So to me, the foundation is bringing like athletes in, guys who's going to get the eyeballs and bring them, so I can tell them about something else that you may turn to, or something you can have later, even if one kid hears it. You know, I wish somebody would have told me about it. So I do want to be that person that I wish I had to educate me on sports. You know, more sports can go or can't go, and something you can do.
And now you want everyone in real estate.
I want everybody in real estate. You know, at whatever level.
Wholesale's the easiest to get into, right? Lowest risk.
Depending on who you ask. Yeah.
Lowest risk?
Lowest risk, yes.
And then what would you say? Flips? Flips is still a job.
Flips is still a job.
Then there's rentals.
Yeah, I would say
Rentals is
creative
long-term.
finance.
Creative finance.
Creative finance and sub 2 after the wholesaling. It's complicated. You got to know your documents. You got to have the right stuff. With the right mentor, you'll be protected and you'll be buttoned
follow
up.
pace, right?
Yeah, follow. Yeah. I met that guy. He's a good guy. But, you know, yes, follow pace, whatever. Get your information, however you get it. But the level of risk of flips, man, like you got to be educated, man. You gotta know what you're doing. You got to be educated, or you could lose your lunch quick.
Got to run your numbers up.
Yes,
flips.
you do. Yes, and you got to manage contractors, and I mean, you got to know what you're doing, especially when you got guys that are private money guys, and they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, you can lose it, but yeah. I think lowest barrier of entry, wholesaling. If you can learn some creative stuff, you still don't have a ton of risk, aside from what is it, do on sale clause and things like that. But educate your seller, and then educate yourself. You graduate to flips. You graduate to holding properties. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
But your heart, what I think is, I mean, you've obviously have done well with real estate.
Thank you.
But your heart is coaching and teaching and breaking it down, dumbing it down, so anyone can do it, right?
Absolutely.
And making it, I mean, and I guess I see that in your life as you've not only have created this wealth for yourself, but then you've shared it by giving back and giving it back in education or the foundation or, coaching people. So
100%, man.
So it's really cool to see. I mean, the grand scheme, you didn't have a lot going for yourself necessarily at 10, 12 years old. But you knew there was more out there, and you kept pushing and you listened. A lot of times we don't listen to people, but you listen to people. You listen to the Indeed guy, and you got into sales, and you had these other opportunities, and you went with them. And I would argue, in regards to that pain point, that stillborn child, you could have just as well turned toward substance, anything.
Yep.
And a lot of people do, Tez. A lot of people fly off the handle and do other things at that point because that's how they pacify it. Yep. And I know you kind of did with work.
Yep.
By your testimony. That's what I would default to. I love to work. But and we actually have to be cautious of that too.
Yep.
Because work can be a threat to our marriage and to our loved ones, as well as alcohol or drugs or anything. It is more profitable.
Yes, it is. It's more profitable. And being young, that's where my heart was. Not experiencing it, not having the type of finances that I could go make. I didn't know that I could ever tell somebody that it's not all about money.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would ever have that emotion or know what that felt like. And a lot of times until you get the money, you don't know what it feels like. So you think that that's what you want. And a lot of times it's not.
Well, it's vanity of vanity. You think it's that until you get it. And you're like, you know what?
This is empty.
There's more to life. I want to get back.
Yep.
Tez, we're going to wrap this up.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. But 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Final 2. What would be your top book recommendation? If you could, and you can say the Bible, but let's do, if you're going to say Bible, let's do the Bible plus.
Okay.
Because that's the easy default.
Absolutely.
That you would say, hey, everyone should read this book, or this book influenced me. What book would it be?
I hate to give the cliche investor book, the Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I'm gonna go a little deeper, and I'm gonna go how to win friends and influence people. When you learn how to win friends and influence people, your life transforms. Yeah, it's a good book.
You know that Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a mindset book.
Yeah.
People always say it's a real estate book.
Mm.
I think it's a mindset book. It makes your mind change. And
I like that.
and how you see things. I think it's, for me, in looking back, it's much more mindset than.
That's what turned the light bulb on for me.
Yeah.
I wasn't reading.
It was mindset.
I was not reading books. I didn't know anything about it. But I got referred to that book while working at Roush because I was like, what can I do with my money? And somebody gave me that book and I read it and it changed
You're
a lot for
I'm
me.
going to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last question. You got 24 hours to live.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
Okay.
You found out in the crystal ball you're going to die tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You have one message. One message to give to the world. What's your message? What do you want the world to hear from Tez?
Wow. I think the message I would leave on my deathbed is that relationships are more important than money. That's it.
Relationships over money.
Relationships over money. And that's personal relationships. That's friendships. It's just way more impactful. It'll get you in places that shortcutting to go get money won't. And it's a lot more fulfilling. If you make great relationships with a lot of people and you never make a dime, it's a lot more fulfilling sitting on that deathbed.
So you guys heard it from Tez. Focus on those relationships. Be intentional there.
Absolutely.
Put the phone away tonight. Don't scroll.
I love it.
Spend time with your wife or husband.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Tez. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, my man. Thank you. Yep.